Working hard doesn't work anymore. That sounds wrong to say, almost like something you're not supposed to admit out loud. Since we were kids, we've all been told the exact same thing. Work hard, stay disciplined, keep grinding, and one day it'll all pay off. That's the formula, right? That's what teachers said, parents said, bosses said, basically everyone said. But here's the weird thing nobody warned us about. A lot of people today are working harder than ever before. Longer hours, less sleep, more stress, more pressure, and somehow they're still stuck. Same money, same problems, same feeling that you're running as fast as you can, but not actually getting anywhere. And honestly, I realized this the hard way. Not from reading some motivational book, not from watching productivity videos at 2 a.m., but from burning myself out trying to do everything right. Because growing up, I truly believed in the classic formula. Work hard, get rewarded. Simple, clean, logical. In school, it made perfect sense. If I studied more than everyone else, I got better grades. If I stayed up late finishing assignments, doing extra work, trying harder than the rest, I got recognition. Teachers noticed, grades improved, things moved forward. So naturally, I thought, okay, this is just how life works. You outwork people, and you win. So when I got older and started working real jobs, I carried that exact same mindset with me. Be the first one there, be the last one to leave, say yes to every task, take on more responsibility. Never complain, never slow down, never show weakness. I thought that if I just pushed harder than everyone else around me, success would eventually show up. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. But then something strange started happening. The harder I worked, the less it seemed to matter. There was a period in my life where I was working almost nonstop. And I'm not exaggerating. Wake up early, rush into the day, work for hours, come home exhausted, and still not really switch off. My brain stayed in work mode, checking messages, thinking about problems, planning the next day before the current one was even over. Weekends didn't feel like weekends anymore. They felt like unpaid overtime that nobody officially asked for but somehow still expected. And in my head, I kept repeating the same story to myself. This is temporary. Just push through. Hard work pays off. Keep going. Don't stop now. That voice was always there, pushing me forward even when my body clearly wanted to slow down. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into more months. And instead of feeling successful, instead of feeling proud, I just felt tired. Mentally tired. Physically tired. Emotionally drained in a way that's hard to explain unless you've felt it yourself. And here's the scary part. Even though I was working harder than ever, I wasn't actually moving forward. No massive progress, no huge opportunities suddenly opening up, no big sense of freedom. Just more work, more pressure, more expectations, and less energy every single day. That's when the doubt started creeping in for the first time. Quiet at first, almost like a whisper in the background. What if working harder isn't the answer anymore? What if the rules changed somewhere along the way, and nobody told us? After that thought showed up, I couldn't really ignore it anymore. Once you start questioning something you've believed your whole life, it's hard to go back to pretending everything makes sense. And that's exactly where I found myself. Still working hard, still doing all the right things, but now with this quiet doubt sitting in the back of my mind. And then I started noticing something that honestly bothered me more than I expected. There were people around me working fewer hours than I was. People leaving earlier, taking longer breaks, sometimes even looking more relaxed than anyone else. And somehow they were doing better. More money, more freedom, less stress. At first, I judged them. I thought maybe they were just lucky. Maybe they had connections. Maybe they were cutting corners or getting away with doing less. Because in my world, success was supposed to come from effort, from sacrifice, from grinding harder than everyone else. But the more I watched, the more I realized something uncomfortable. They weren't lazy, not even close. They were just playing a completely different game than I was. While I was focused on doing more work, they were focused on doing the right work. While I was measuring my value in hours, they were measuring their value in results. And that difference sounds small at first, but it changes everything. One day, I remember sitting there after a long shift, completely exhausted, staring at my screen, thinking about how tired I felt. And at the same time, I remembered seeing someone else earlier that day, leaving the office early, looking calm, almost stress-free. And instead of feeling jealous, I started feeling curious. What did they know that I didn't? That question changed everything for me. Because once I stopped assuming that hard work alone was the answer, I finally started looking for better answers. I started paying attention to how people actually got ahead, not how they talked about getting ahead. And what I noticed shocked me a little. The people moving forward the fastest weren't always the ones working the longest hours. They weren't always the most exhausted. They weren't always the busiest. In fact, some of them looked almost relaxed. And that confused me at first, because being busy had always felt like progress to me. If I was tired, it meant I was doing something right. If my schedule was packed, it meant I was productive. That was the identity I built for myself. The hardworking one, the reliable one, the person who never stopped pushing. But here's the truth. I slowly started realizing, being busy is not the same as being valuable. You can fill every hour of your day with tasks, emails, meetings, and small responsibilities, and still not move forward in any meaningful way. You can feel productive, feel exhausted, feel overwhelmed, and still be stuck in the exact same place months later. And when that realization hit me, it hit hard. Because it meant that all those extra hours, all that sacrifice, all those late nights, weren't automatically building the future I thought they were building. Some of that effort was helping, sure, but a lot of it was just keeping me busy enough to feel productive, without actually creating progress. And that's a dangerous trap, because society rewards effort on the surface. People praise hard workers. Bosses notice the ones who stay late. Friends admire the hustle. But results, real results, don't care how tired you are. They don't care how many hours you worked. They only care about one thing: impact. And that was the moment where I started asking a new question. Not, how can I work harder, but how can I make my work matter more? That single shift in thinking was the beginning of everything changing. That question stayed in my head for days. Not, how can I work harder, but how can I make my work matter more? And once that question is in your mind, you start seeing things differently. You start noticing patterns that were always there, but you were too busy to see them. One of the biggest things I started noticing was how some people seem to get results without constantly being in motion. Not lazy, not careless, just efficient in a way I didn't understand yet. They weren't trying to do everything themselves. They weren't measuring success by how exhausted they felt at the end of the day. And that's when I first heard a word that, at the time, sounded kind of boring, but later changed everything for me: leverage. At first, I didn't really get it. Leverage sounded like one of those business words people throw around to sound smart. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized it was actually simple. Leverage just means getting more results from the same amount of effort, or sometimes even less effort. It means your work keeps working, even when you stop. And once I understood that idea, I started seeing examples of it everywhere. Think about this. Two people can work the exact same number of hours, but get completely different results. One person spends the whole day answering small tasks, reacting to problems, doing things manually over and over again. The other person spends time building something once, something that can be reused, automated, or scaled. At the end of the day, both feel tired, both worked hard, but one created something that continues to produce value tomorrow, next week, even next year. That difference is leverage. And honestly, realizing this was uncomfortable, because it meant that a lot of the hard work I was proud of wasn't actually smart work. It was just repetitive effort. Effort that felt good in the moment because it made me feel responsible, busy, useful. But deep down, it wasn't moving the needle. I remember one specific moment that made this painfully clear. I was sitting there doing the same type of task I had already done dozens of times before. Same steps, same process, same outcome. And while doing it, I had this strange thought. Why am I still doing this manually? Why am I solving the same problem again and again instead of solving it once in a better way? That thought stuck with me. Because once you notice repetition, you can't unsee it. You start seeing how much of your time goes into things that don't really grow, don't really expand, don't really multiply. They just repeat, and repetition without improvement slowly traps you. That's when I started experimenting, even in small ways. Not huge changes, not dramatic moves, just small shifts in how I approached work. Instead of immediately doing the task, I asked myself, is there a way to make this easier next time? Is there a way to save time in the future, even if it costs me more time today? And at first, that felt wrong. Honestly, it felt lazy. Taking extra time to build a better system instead of finishing quickly felt like I was slowing down, like I was cheating the old rules I grew up with. Because the old rule said, finish fast, work hard, move on to the next task. But the new rule was different. Slow down once, so you don't have to rush forever. And that idea slowly started changing how I looked at effort itself. I began realizing that effort is not the enemy. Hard work is not useless. The real problem is working hard on things that don't grow, don't scale, and don't build momentum. Because the truth is, the world changed. Technology changed it, the internet changed it, automation changed it. One person today can do what 10 people used to do, not because they're superhuman, but because they use tools that multiply their effort. And if you ignore that reality, if you keep relying only on raw effort, you slowly fall behind, even if you're working harder than ever. That was the moment I started seeing hard work differently. Not as the main strategy, but as fuel. Fuel that needs direction. Because without direction, even the hardest work just burns energy without creating progress. And once that idea settled in my mind, I realized something that honestly scared me a little. If working hard alone isn't enough anymore, then what actually is? Because if the thing you've trusted your whole life suddenly feels unreliable, it leaves you standing there with this strange mix of confusion and pressure. Like you've been running a race for years, only to realize you might be on the wrong track. So I started looking for patterns. Not theories, not motivational quotes, but real patterns in people who were actually moving forward. People who had more freedom, more options, more control over their time. And what I noticed surprised me, because it wasn't just about working smarter in some vague way. It was about working on the right things, even when those things didn't look impressive at first. Most people, including me back then, focused on tasks. Finish this, reply to that, solve this small problem, move to the next one. It felt productive because you were always doing something, always moving, always reacting. But the problem with living like that is you never create space to think. You never step back far enough to ask the uncomfortable question, does this even matter in the long run? I remember one evening sitting at my desk after a long day, feeling that familiar kind of exhaustion where your brain feels heavy, but your to-do list still looks endless. And instead of starting the next task like I normally would, I just stopped for a minute. Not because I had a strategy, but because I was simply too tired to keep pretending this was working. And that pause, that tiny break from constant motion, was more valuable than hours of effort. Because during that moment, I realized something that felt almost embarrassing to admit. A lot of the work I was doing wasn't building anything. It wasn't creating momentum. It was maintenance. Keeping systems alive, solving daily problems, reacting to things that kept appearing. Necessary work, sure, but not the kind of work that changes your future. That's when I started separating work into two types in my head: maintenance work and growth work. Maintenance work keeps things running. Growth work moves things forward. And the scary truth is, maintenance work never ends. There will always be emails, messages, tasks, small fires to put out. You can spend your entire life doing maintenance and feel busy every single day while never really growing. Growth work, on the other hand, feels different. It often feels slower at first, sometimes even uncomfortable. It requires thinking, learning, building, experimenting. And here's the part that makes it hard. Growth work doesn't always give immediate rewards. You might spend hours learning a new skill, building a new system, or creating something that doesn't pay off today, but pays off later in ways you can't immediately see. That shift changed how I started planning my days. Instead of asking what needs to be done right now, I slowly started asking what will matter 6 months from now. And that question forced me to look at my time differently. Because time isn't just something you spend, it's something you invest, whether you realize it or not. And once I saw time as an investment, instead of just hours to survive, I noticed another uncomfortable truth. Some of the hardest work I had done in the past had the smallest long-term impact, and some of the quietest work learning, building, improving systems had the biggest potential to change everything. That realization didn't make life easier overnight. It didn't suddenly remove stress or create instant success, but it did something more important. It gave direction to effort. It made hard work meaningful again, instead of just exhausting. And that's when I started asking a new kind of question, one that honestly changed how I looked at my future. Not, how many hours did I work today, but did I build something today that will still matter tomorrow? At first, nothing dramatic happened. There was no sudden breakthrough, no overnight success, no moment where everything magically clicked into place. Honestly, the first phase felt slow, almost frustratingly slow. Because when you start focusing on growth work instead of just maintenance work, it feels like you're moving backward at first. You spend time learning instead of producing. You spend time thinking instead of reacting. And that can feel uncomfortable, especially when you're used to measuring your value by how busy you are. I remember trying to learn new skills while still handling my normal responsibilities. Sitting there after a long day, tired, staring at tutorials, reading articles, testing ideas that didn't always work. There were moments where I questioned myself, wondering if I was wasting time chasing something that might never pay off. Because the old mindset kept whispering in my ear, you should be doing something useful right now, not experimenting. But slowly, very slowly, small changes started showing up. Nothing huge, just tiny improvements. Tasks that used to take an hour suddenly took 30 minutes. Problems that once felt complicated started feeling manageable. Things that used to stress me out stopped feeling overwhelming. And the interesting part was, I wasn't working more hours. In some cases, I was actually working fewer hours, but getting better results. That was the first real sign that something was working. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because effort started multiplying instead of just repeating. The work I did yesterday started making today easier. The systems I built last week saved time this week. The skills I practiced last month started opening small opportunities that didn't exist before. And those small wins matter more than people think. Because success rarely shows up as one big moment. It shows up as quiet progress that stacks over time. Tiny advantages that grow into bigger advantages. And once you experience that for yourself, even in a small way, it changes how you look at effort forever. But here's the part nobody warns you about. Even after you start seeing progress, there's still a massive trap waiting for you. A trap that catches a lot of hardworking people, especially the ones who finally start getting better results. And I almost fell straight into it myself. That trap showed up right when things started getting better. Not worse, not chaotic, better. And that's exactly why it was so dangerous. Because when you finally start seeing progress, you relax a little. You feel like you figured something out, like you cracked the code. But that's usually the moment where people accidentally slow down in the wrong way. For me, the trap was simple, but hard to notice at first. I started getting faster, more efficient, better at handling tasks. Things that used to take forever became easier. Problems didn't scare me the way they used to. And because of that, people started trusting me with more work, more responsibility, more expectations. At first, that felt like success, like recognition, like proof that my hard work was finally paying off. People noticed the results, and naturally, they started giving me more to handle. And instead of questioning it, I said yes to everything. Again, just like before. Because deep down, I still had that old belief wired into my brain. If you want to succeed, you say yes, you step up, you carry more weight. But this time, something felt different. Even though I was working smarter, I slowly started filling my time with more and more tasks again. Not because I had to, but because I felt responsible. Because I wanted to prove that I deserved the progress I was making. And before I fully realized what was happening, my schedule started looking just like it used to. Full, heavy, non-stop. That's when it hit me. The biggest danger isn't working hard. The biggest danger is becoming so good at working that people keep giving you more work instead of more freedom. That realization felt uncomfortable, almost unfair. Because society teaches you that being reliable is always rewarded, that being capable leads to better opportunities. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes being capable just means you become the person everyone depends on while you stay stuck in the same position. I remember looking at my calendar one day and noticing something strange. Every hour was filled, every slot taken. Meetings, tasks, responsibilities, requests from different directions. It looked impressive from the outside. Busy, productive, important. But when I stepped back and looked closer, I noticed something scary. Almost none of those tasks were building my future. They were maintaining the present. That was the moment I realized another hard truth. If you don't protect your time, other people will happily fill it for you. Not because they're evil, not because they want to hold you back, but because everyone is trying to solve their own problems. And if you're the reliable one, the hardworking one, the capable one, you become the easiest solution. And here's the dangerous part. You can feel successful while slowly drifting away from your real goals. You can feel needed, respected, even admired, while secretly losing control of your direction. That realization forced me to do something that felt incredibly uncomfortable at first. I had to start saying no, not to everything, not in an aggressive way, but in a deliberate way. I had to start choosing which work deserved my energy, and which work was just noise disguised as responsibility. And trust me, that wasn't easy. Because saying no feels risky when your identity is built around being the hardworking one. It feels like you're letting people down, like you're missing opportunities, like you're breaking an unwritten rule. But over time, I started realizing that every time you say yes to the wrong thing, you're silently saying no to the right thing. That idea changed how I looked at opportunity itself. Not every opportunity moves you forward. Some opportunities just keep you busy. And once you realize that, you start looking at hard work in a completely different way. Because the truth is, hard work itself was never the problem. Hard work built cities. Hard work built companies. Hard work built everything we rely on today. The problem isn't hard work. The problem is blind hard work. Hard work without direction. Hard work without thinking about where it actually leads. For years, I believed that effort alone would carry me forward. That if I just stayed disciplined long enough, success would eventually show up like some kind of reward for loyalty. But life doesn't really work like that anymore. Not in a world where tools, technology, and information move faster than effort alone ever could. And once that became clear to me, I started noticing something almost ironic. The people who looked the most relaxed weren't avoiding hard work. They were just extremely careful about where they placed their effort. They treated effort like something valuable, not something cheap. Like fuel you don't want to waste. That image stuck with me. Imagine pouring fuel into a car with no clear direction. You can keep driving all day, burning energy, moving fast, but if you're heading in the wrong direction, speed doesn't help you. In fact, it makes things worse. You just get lost faster. That's what blind hard work feels like. You move, you grind, you stay busy, you feel exhausted, but deep down, you're not sure if you're actually getting closer to the life you want, and that uncertainty slowly eats away at motivation. Not all at once, but bit by bit, until effort starts feeling heavy instead of meaningful. What changed things for me wasn't quitting hard work. It was redefining what hard work meant. Instead of working hard at everything, I started working hard on fewer things, the right things. The things that had long-term impact, not just short-term urgency. That shift sounds simple when you hear it, but living it is different. It means being willing to step back when everyone else is rushing forward. It means taking time to think when the world rewards constant movement. It means choosing progress over comfort, even when progress feels slower in the beginning. And over time, something interesting started happening. Work felt lighter, even when it was difficult. Not easier, but more meaningful. The exhaustion felt different too. Instead of feeling drained without results, I started feeling tired with purpose. Like the energy I spent was actually building something, not just disappearing into endless tasks. That's when I finally understood something that nobody clearly explained to me growing up. Hard work still matters. Discipline still matters. Consistency still matters, but only when they're aimed at something that grows, something that multiplies, something that creates momentum instead of just movement. Because movement looks impressive, but momentum is what changes your life. And once I understood that difference, the phrase "work hard" stopped feeling like a command and started feeling like a choice, a tool, something to use carefully, not blindly. And that realization led me to one final thought. The one that completely changed how I look at success today. That final thought stayed with me because it forced me to face something I had avoided for a long time. The idea that working hard isn't the thing that guarantees success anymore. Choosing where to work hard is. And once that really sank in, the title that would have sounded crazy to me years ago suddenly made perfect sense. Why working hard doesn't work anymore. Not because effort is useless, not because discipline is outdated, but because the world changed and the rules changed with it. Today, effort alone is everywhere. Everyone is busy. Everyone is grinding. Everyone is tired. Hard work isn't rare anymore, which means it isn't automatically valuable anymore. What's rare today is clarity, direction, the ability to step back and decide what actually deserves your effort. Because if everyone is working hard, the person who wins isn't the one working the longest. It's the one working on the things that matter most. And when I look back at my own journey, that's probably the biggest shift that happened. I stopped measuring my days by how exhausted I felt. I stopped wearing tiredness like some kind of badge of honor. Because being tired doesn't mean you're progressing. Being busy doesn't mean you're building something meaningful. Progress feels quieter than people expect. Sometimes it looks like sitting down and learning while others are rushing. Sometimes it looks like saying no when everyone expects you to say yes. Sometimes it looks like slowing down long enough to think, so you don't spend years running in the wrong direction. And here's the truth that took me way too long to understand. Hard work still works, but only when it's pointed in the right direction. Only when it builds something that keeps growing, even when you step away. Only when it creates options instead of just obligations. Because at the end of the day, most people aren't actually afraid of hard work. They're afraid of wasting their effort, afraid of spending years pushing forward, only to realize they were climbing the wrong ladder the whole time. That's the real fear. And maybe that's why this message matters so much today. Not to tell people to stop working hard, but to remind them to stop working blindly, to question routines that feel productive but don't lead anywhere, to choose effort carefully instead of giving it away to anything that feels urgent. So if there's one thing I'd leave you with, it's this. Don't stop working hard. Just stop working hard without thinking. Take a moment, step back, and ask yourself a simple question. The same one that changed everything for me. Are the things I'm working on today actually building the life I want tomorrow? Because once you start asking that question honestly, your effort stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like strategy. If this hit a bit differently for you, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think working hard still works the same way it used to? Or has something changed in your own experience too? And if you want more videos like this, you know what to do. See you in the next one.